Yeah.
And another top team goes down. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert guys, here with our Week 7 college football recap. Yes, we know we were a day late. We apologize for that. We were dealing with a bunch of personal things over these last few days, really over the last week, but we are ready to get back into college football, ready to start talking about college football again. And again, another wild weekend of college football. 7 top 25 teams going down in Week 7, 5 of them to unranked teams. Once again, shaking up the entire landscape of college football, shaking up the playoff race, and shaking up conferences around the country. We're here to break down everything that happened over this last weekend. So again, guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And of course, check out everything down in the description below, guys, especially those expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. They are some of the best, and we're not exaggerating, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. We are hitting 59% of our NFL picks. We are on an 11-1 run right now. We are 11-1 in our last 12 picks for NFL. We are 38-35 on the year for college, 52.1%. We'll be at least 54%, probably going to be higher than that by season's end. Both those marks are some of the best in the country, beating out your guys like the Bear at ESPN, beating out every analyst at CBS, beating out the majority of the analysts at ESPN, 80% of the national analysts and all, including your handicappers in Vegas. So make sure to go check us out, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for those expert picks. It's a year-long subscription. You're not going to want to miss out on it. So let's take a look, guys. Before we dive into our quick headlines and obviously the games that happened, go look at our big board real quick. We'll get through that quick. 23-6 on the money line, 23-6 straight up this week. So nearly 80%, we're just right below it. But our overall is still over 80%. We're 246-59, so not a bad mark. 80.7%. As always, as you know, the goal here at the Gridiron Expert is 77%. Well, we're entering Week 8, and we're still at 80.7%, having predicted and picked over 300 games now already. I think we're looking okay. So a great year so far through the money line. Against the spread, 5-5. A rough start to the afternoon. The night really picked it up for us. Wish it had been 60%. Wish it had been maybe 70% like it was in Week 6. But still, 50%, rather break even than lose, 38-35 on the year. Again, college and NFL, some of the best marks in the country. Sign up for those expert picks today, guys, so you don't miss out on any of the rest of the content we have the rest of the year. So let's take a look at the quick headlines real quick before we dive into the deeper analysis for the bigger games. Number 9, Oregon survives California 24-17 with a stop on the 2-yard line. The Golden Bears had a chance in the red zone inside the 2-yard line to tie the game, maybe win it had they gone for 2, to take down Oregon. But the Ducks defense held strong, which keeps not just their playoff hopes alive, but the Pac-12's playoff hopes alive as a whole. As we all know, Oregon is the best hope for the Pac-12 to get to the playoff, and they're alive. Their hopes stay alive right now. They could come to an end in Week 8 against UCLA. We'll have more on that game later in the week. How about Auburn taking down number 17 Arkansas, one of the ranked teams that fell to an unranked team that we just mentioned. 5 of those. Arkansas was unfortunately one of them, falling 38-23. A game that, if you watched it, was marred by poor officiating, but also poor play calling and inability to take advantage of opportunities by Arkansas. The referees were once again pitiful, horrible, as they were across the country, especially in the SEC, really robbing Arkansas of a handful of prime opportunities, such as the early fumble in the second quarter, the phantom pass interference call in the fourth quarter that allowed Auburn to get a field goal and ultimately put the game out of reach. There were some bad calls there from the referees for the second year in a row, as we all remember what happened last time Arkansas and Auburn played. But the Razorbacks were unable to capitalize themselves, consistently getting inside the Auburn 30-yard line, deep into their territory, unable to convert. The Razorbacks, who were once number 8 in the country, are now unranked, losing 3 straight. How about ULM, one of the worst teams in the country? Fell 59-6 to Coastal Carolina, fell 55-21 to Georgia State, upsets Liberty. Their star quarterback Malik Willis upsets Liberty 31-28, picked off Malik Willis, who some had as the number 1 quarterback heading into the next year's NFL draft, picked him off 3 times. The Warhawks, 32-point underdogs, got the win over the Flames. Oklahoma finally figured things out, and they finally beat an FBS team by more than single digits, defeating TCU 52-31. Caleb Williams is the answer. They have figured things out offensively now, guys. Caleb Williams, 18 for 23, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, also rushed for 66 yards and had a 41-yard rushing touchdown. The Sooners, guys, what we saw against TCU was the Sooners team that we expected to see from day one. All they needed was a quarterback change, and Caleb Williams will be that guy from here on out. The Sooners look legit, and that is the type of playoff contender we thought they would be. And finally, the last point we'll try to make here, Ed Orgeron is out as head coach at LSU. Yes, he will finish the season. But despite the big win over number 20 Florida, another ranked team falling to an unranked team, LSU announced they would no longer be keeping Ed Orgeron and that when the season ends, they will part ways. That was probably the biggest news to come out of this weekend. You hate to see it for Ed O, but it was time. Some may think that national championship was a fluke. Not really credit to him, more in credit to Joe Burrow and Joe Brady. So let's dive into the big games real quick. We'll try to keep it as quick as we can. I know these videos tend to run a little long, but that's why we have timestamps, right? How about number 12, Oklahoma State, going on the road and taking down number 25, Texas? That was a statement win for me for Oklahoma State, guys. They were a team that, yes, they've won at Boise State. Yes, they beat Baylor at home. They beat Kansas State. But we hadn't seen much from Oklahoma State to say, hey, they're legit. They're legitimate Big 12 contenders, national title contenders even. But the road win at Texas, where they were down 14 points, showed me that Oklahoma State has what it takes to be for real and has what it takes to maybe win the Big 12. They defeated the Longhorns 32-24, trailed 17-3 in the second quarter, trailed 24-13 in the third quarter, trailed 24-16 entering the fourth quarter, but outscored the Longhorns 16-0 in that in that fourth quarter. 16-0 in that fourth quarter. So Texas, for the second week in a row, blew a huge lead. They were up 21 points against Oklahoma, up 18 points over the Sooners at half, blew that, lost. They were up by 14 at one point against the Cowboys, up by 11 in the third quarter in the second half, blew that and lost, this time on their home turf. The Cowboys did it, again, from a solid running game, 220 rushing yards, and a great defense, forcing 2 turnovers and one of those interceptions coming on the potential game-winning drive, picking off Casey Thompson. So again, guys, huge win for Oklahoma State, a statement win for Oklahoma State. Texas, you got to figure out how to hold a lead, man. Longhorns, you got to figure out how to maintain a lead because the second week in a row to the 2 Oklahoma schools where you've been unable to do that. But Oklahoma State, guys, they are 6-0. The AP poll has them at number 8. They travel to Iowa State this upcoming weekend. Not going to be an easy game, major trap game for them. But if they get past Iowa State, they very well could be undefeated by the time they take on Oklahoma, Bedlam, in the season finale. They're the number 2 team in the Big 12 right now, but they very well could be number 1 by season's end. How about number 1, Georgia, taking care of number 11, Kentucky, 30-13. Georgia, again, flexing their muscles, showing, hey, we're still the number 1 team in the country, and no one's going to take that spot away from us unless we lose. And guess what? You're not going to beat us. I don't know if there's a team in the country that can beat the Georgia Bulldogs, and I really, really mean that. Georgia now has 3 straight wins over top 20 teams, defeating Arkansas, Auburn, now Kentucky. Give credit to the Wildcats, though. They arguably played Georgia closer and better than any team has this season. Better than Arkansas, maybe even better than Auburn. The Wildcats put 13 points on them, and yes, I know one of those touchdowns came with 4 seconds left. You know Mark Stoops was just trying to get the cover, so if you had Georgia, we did not, but if you had Georgia, I hate that for you. I really do. You hate it when coaches tend to do that. But they dropped 13 points on Georgia, only trailed 14-7 at halftime, and still put up 243 yards on the Bulldogs, which is not that's a lot, but 42 yards over the season average. Georgia was only allowing about 201 yards per game. Kentucky put up 243. But Georgia still flexed their muscles defensively. They still have the best defense in college football. And offensively, they continue to show that they are capable of putting up those points. For years under Kirby Smart, it was, yeah, we know you have a great defense, but can your offense move? Can your offense put up the points? If it becomes a shootout, can you hang? And Georgia's showing that they can. Not that they've been in a shootout lately, but the numbers speak for themselves. 416 yards of offense, 250 of those coming through the air from Stetson Bennett. Not JT Daniels, Stetson Bennett. And right now, with the way Bennett's playing, if JT gets fully healthy, I wouldn't put him back in. I really wouldn't. Keep Stetson Bennett in. He's hot. He's playing well. He's playing mistake-free football. Why change that? Why change that? 3 touchdowns from Stetson Bennett. And again, Georgia taking down another top 20 team, this time number 11, Kentucky. Georgia's got the SEC East in the bag. They've got Florida in 2 weeks, but Florida, they just lost to LSU. Allowed, 49 points in that game, 49 points. Georgia's fine. We'll talk about that game close to time, but I don't mean to write off Florida for you Gator fans, but it could get ugly. Speaking of another team that we thought had a great defense. Number 2, Iowa. We started this video by saying another top team goes down. Who was that? It was the number 2 ranked Hawkeyes falling at home, Kinnick Stadium, to Purdue 24-7. Wasn't even close, guys. One of the toughest places to play in all of college football, where a week prior Iowa had taken down number 4 Penn State. They fell to Purdue, an unranked team, 24-7, allowed Purdue's Aiden O'Connell to throw for 375 yards and 2 touchdowns, allowed Purdue's star wide receiver David Bell to rack up 240 yards and a touchdown on just 11 receptions. Those stat lines for O'Connell and David Bell are ridiculous. Unreal. And I will say that last week we said had Sean Clifford not gone down with an injury for Penn State probably would have defeated Iowa. Iowa's special teams was great. Their defense played great. But the fact that Penn State played the majority of the second half without their star quarterback and were consistently pinned inside their own 10, 15-yard line, Iowa was going to be able to win that game. The defense stood strong. Penn State was never going to be able to move the ball down the field to get points. If Clifford stays healthy, they probably win. I do believe that. And that showed here. Iowa flexed their muscles against Penn State. They were unable to against Purdue because this passing attack was arguably the best that Iowa has faced all year, and the Hawkeyes didn't know how to stop it. Furthermore, 24-7 loss, Iowa had to figure out how to move the football. We knew they had a great defense, but they didn't have an offense, and we knew that. And that once again showed on Saturday. Spencer Petras, 195 passing yards, 4 interceptions. Those are Iowa-type numbers. The Hawkeyes are used to picking off their opponents 4 times, not committing 4 turnovers like they did. So once again, Iowa's lack of offense showed and ended up being their handicap. It ended up being why, and I'm not saying why they lost because their defense couldn't stop Purdue at all, but Iowa's lack of offense has been their Achilles heel. And that showed against Purdue. And that was a major reason why, if they were going to get to the college football playoff, they weren't going to be able to succeed. Because they had to be able to score points. They had to be able to move the ball. They weren't going to be able to hang with the likes of Georgia or Alabama, maybe not even Cincinnati. And the Hawkeyes' playoff hopes, guys, I will say, are done. Iowa's playoff hopes are done. Losing at home by 17 points to an unranked team in Purdue has eliminated you from the college football playoff because outside of that, your strength of schedule is not all that great. Yes, Iowa could still win the Big Ten and make their case, but I'm willing to bet you that they lose at least one more time, whether it's in the regular season or in the Big Ten championship. Iowa will not be in the college football playoff. It's because of this loss right here. Real quick, a couple more games left. Pittsburgh dominating Virginia Tech 28-7. That was one of our top 5 games of the week. And I had people ask, why? 2 unranked ACC teams. ACC conference is weak this year. Why do we want Pittsburgh or Virginia Tech? Because the winner was going to control the Coastal. The winner was in first place of the Coastal and had complete control of it. Pittsburgh went in and dominated the Hokies in Blacksburg 28-7. Pittsburgh is now 5-1. They are a nationally ranked team, rightfully so. And Pittsburgh may not lose again. 11-1 is not out of the question for the Panthers. They host Clemson. They host North Carolina. A couple other teams like Duke and Syracuse on the road that won't be easy, but where Pittsburgh will be favored. They may not lose again, and Pittsburgh absolutely can beat whoever comes out of the Atlantic, whether it's Wake Forest or NC State, or maybe it's even Clemson. Pittsburgh can do it. The Panthers are legit. It's just hard to believe and unfortunate that their lone loss is to Western Michigan. But Kenny Pickett playing as good a football as any quarterback in the country, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, adding a rushing touchdown as well. Pittsburgh held Virginia Tech to 224 total yards on the day. The Panthers are now number 1 in the ACC Coastal and look primed to make a run back to the ACC championship game. Another game, Baylor. Another unranked team taking down a ranked team. And again, for the life of me, I never understood why Baylor wasn't ranked. Because the Bears deserved it. And they're ranked now. Finally, the AP poll woke up. If you watch our rankings, you know that Baylor was already a top 20 team in our eyes. And that showed on Saturday. We loved Baylor over BYU, and they did not disappoint, taking down the Cougars 38-24 with 534 yards of offense. 534 yards of offense, including 303 rushing yards over the Cougars. This Baylor team is legit, guys. They are the real deal. We talked about, Oklahoma State. We've talked about Oklahoma, obviously. But Baylor, their only loss is to Oklahoma State. They still host Texas. They still host Oklahoma. The Bears, this team reminds me a lot of the team we saw back in 2019 where Baylor came out of nowhere, made it to the Big 12 championship game, and had they won that, losing in overtime to Oklahoma, but had they won that, Baylor would have been in the playoff. This Baylor team is playoff caliber with the way they're playing. Ferocious defense, very balanced and electric offense. Again, guys, this team's legit, and it showed against a solid BYU team who was 19th in the country. The game was 17-14 early in the third quarter. Baylor said, hold on, we're fine. Quickly went on a 21-3 run, put the game away, and the Bears now are a top 20 team, and they'll be much higher in our rankings that come out later today. But watch out for the Bears, guys, in the Big 12. And watch out for them on the national stage, too. Last two games here. Number 13, Ole Miss takes down Tennessee 31-26 in a game marred by the refs and a game marred by the fans. Everybody's going to look at that game and go, oh, Tennessee, you're so classless. Look at them pelting the field with all this trash and throwing a golf ball at Lane Kiffin and all that. In Tennessee, you are that. That was classless. And that was ridiculous. And you should be ashamed of yourself. That there's no place in college football for that. Absolutely not. Not one bit. Not one bit. No team, I don't care who you are, I don't care how bad the call was, I don't care how close the game was, I don't care what it is, that should never happen. So it was a classless act, something that the university needs to get under control, something that maybe the NCAA needs to get under control, but we know they won't do that because the NCAA doesn't do anything. But I will say this, Tennessee fans, I feel your frustration. I recognize your frustration, I recognize why you did what you did. Don't agree with it at all. Wholeheartedly disagree with it, it was wrong. And it should never happen again. And there should be a punishment involved for that. That shows the type of ship that Josh Heupel and the University of Tennessee are running down in Knoxville. It's not good. But the referees are god-awful. Not just for that game, but for the SEC period. But certainly for that game. You have the first quarter fumble recovery where Matt Corral's forward progress was stopped. Obviously it was not. Tennessee stripped it, returned it, touchdown Tennessee, and the referee said, no, that play's unreviewable. Unreviewable. Well, that's a load of crap. That's a load of crap. I don't know what happened on that play, but it looked like Matt Corral was clueless. Looked like there may have been an inadvertent whistle, which we didn't ever hear or confirm, but that should have been a touchdown for Tennessee. Later on in the game, obviously fans were very upset because with 54 seconds left, they were given a very bad spot. On 4th and 24, they marked Tennessee just about a yard short. Gave the ball back to Ole Miss. Now the Volunteers got the ball right back and had a chance to win the game in the final moments. Joe Milton, for some reason, took off running instead of throwing the ball to the end zone. But it was a bad spot. I mean, look, you take it as you want it. Say the refs were right on that side. Say you weren't. If you're a Tennessee fan, you're going to say they weren't. If you're not, you're going to say it was fine. But again, a very controversial call there at the end. Factor in all the fake injuries by Ole Miss players. And I know Tennessee does it too. But Ole Miss does it more. They did it against Arkansas. They did it against Tennessee. Factor in that. And Tennessee fans had every right to be frustrated. And the SEC has to figure something out, guys. I wholeheartedly believe that especially the fake injuries of all things, the fake injuries all they need to be addressed. They have to be addressed because it's getting old. When you face these up-tempo teams and all of a sudden, this defensive lineman's jogging, he gets down his stance and then goes, oh no, my leg hurts. I'm not saying all players fake them. I'm not saying all injuries are fake. But the majority of the time, especially when you have video evidence of coaches looking at him and say, go down, act hurt, because it stops the clock and gives us a time to regroup without using a timeout. Has a chance to slow down the tempo, slow down the momentum. Something should be done about that. And Ole Miss did that a lot against Tennessee. And if you're a Volunteer fan, you know what I'm talking about. So yes, congratulations to Ole Miss. Matt Corral became just the third quarterback in SEC history to throw and run for at least 195 yards, joining Johnny Manziel and Cam Newton, two Heisman Trophy winners. Matt Corral seeming to be the Heisman Trophy favorite. But what happened in Tennessee was inexcusable, not just from the fans, that was terrible, but also from the officials. And the SEC needs to get it together because it's very clear and blatant what they are doing to a lot of these teams. Final game we'll talk about, Utah taking down number 18 Arizona State. Why was that a big game? Because the winner of that controlled their destiny in the Pac-12 South. Just very similar to what we mentioned with Pittsburgh and Virginia Tech in the ACC Coastal. So Utah takes down number 18 Arizona State. For many, Arizona State was the favorite in the South. Utah, a team who was 1-2, has now won 3 straight games. Utah, a team who trailed Arizona State 21-7 at half, outscored the Sun Devils 28-0 in the second half and held the Sun Devils to 82 yards in the second half. 82 yards of offense in the second half. Utah's offense looked as good as they have all year, 247 passing yards, 208 rushing yards. And this Utah team, guys, very well could make a run at the Pac-12 title again. It's going to be a tough road at Oregon State, UCLA, at Stanford, Oregon, still all on their schedule, but the Utes are looking good, and this is looking like the Utes team we thought they would be earlier on in the year. Big win for Kyle Whittingham and the Utes in Salt Lake City, taking down Herm Edwards and the Sun Devils, who have dropped out of the top 25. So, guys, there you go. A wild Week 7. Again, I mean, from what happened down in Knoxville to what happened in Iowa City with the Hawkeyes, number 2 team in the country. What happened in Athens with Georgia taking down Kentucky in our game of the week. So much happened in Week 7, and so much, again, has happened in this last week that has made this college football season the craziest we have ever seen, the most unpredictable we have ever seen. And as we say every single week, just sit back and enjoy the ride, because we don't know what's going to happen each week. You hope you do. You hope your team comes through. You hope you know what's going to happen. You hope you can predict right, but at the end of the day, you can't. We don't know what the heck's going to happen each week. And usually what we think's going to happen probably isn't. So another wild weekend of college football, guys. We're over halfway through this season. It's hard to believe. But let's gear up for Week 8. Again, our top 25 rankings coming out later tonight. Predictions on Tuesday. And we're going to get ready for another big weekend of college football that, on paper, doesn't look that exciting. But we know that by the end of Saturday night, it certainly will be. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for joining us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football picks in the country, certainly some of the best NFL picks in the country, and that has been for the last 3 years. If you have not signed up, make sure to sign up today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.